And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Friday, June 20th, 2025. And to set things up for this weekend aviation outlook, we start out as of this Friday. We do have low pressure that's crossed the central Aleutians up into the lower portion of the Bering, and this low is a gale force low. It had central pressure overnight that was down near 982 millibars, and it had gale force winds wrapped around the secluded front that is spreading north and eastward up the Alaska Peninsula toward the southwest coast. So still as of this Friday, there will be some gale force winds far eastern Aleutians up along the lower parts of the Alaska Peninsula. And coming into Saturday, that low will begin to weaken, and the front as it comes further north and eastward will also weaken. And then coming into the weekend, the Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast should enjoy more in the way of drier, sunnier weather in many locations. Starting out Saturday morning, we could have a few thunderstorms in the east central interior. Those will erupt again in the afternoon. So Saturday, widespread thunderstorms possible, especially north of the Alaska Range. Even in through here, the northern Copper River Basin, there's that potential. But there'll be a broad area of isolated to scattered thunderstorms that extend all the way across the central eastern interior to over the Brooks Range along the north slope. And it's not even impossible there could be an isolated storm along the Beaufort Sea coast or along the Chukchi Sea coast as you get over toward Point Lay and Wainwright. So quite a bit of instability there. Meanwhile, IFR conditions across especially the central western Aleutians. Into Sunday morning, generally VFR conditions expected across much of the mainland interior, with the exception west arm of the Alaska Range and areas inland from Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays. Otherwise, generally fair weather with some haze. We have the smoke from the Canadian wildfires that's been transported with the easterly flow across into even the mainland from the Panhandle and the Yukon Territory. So flights around here, we have active fires as well. The fire danger is going to be much increased over the weekend, with the scattered storms likely potentially starting new fires. And then Sunday afternoon, we find the focus of the redevelopment of thunderstorms to be along the south slopes of the Brooks Range, Yukon Flats, Tanana up toward 40-mile Gold Country, Circle, Eagle, down through the eastern Alaska Range, Tanana Valleys, and even Wrangell Mountains and northern portions of the Copper River Basin. Meanwhile, widespread IFR conditions continue out over the Bering, including St. Matthew, St. Lawrence Island, through the Bering Strait, and down toward Nunavik Island, back towards St. Paul. And here's just a quick check of the thunderstorm outlook for this Friday. Scattered storms, especially along the Brooks Range south through Fairbanks, Northway and the Tanana Valley, and down into the Wrangell Mountains. They're just south of the Alaska Range. As we go into Saturday, we see that threat even extend up along the Arctic coast, potentially an isolated storm that far north. And then on Sunday, kind of shifts back toward the south and east along the south slopes of the Brooks Range, including Arctic Village, Bettles, down toward Fairbanks, Yukon Flats to Northway. So that's the way things are shaping up here in terms of convection. And then looking at pass conditions for Saturday, VFR Anaktuvik as well as Adigan Pass, but there could be a thunderstorm develop in vicinity in the afternoon hours as we drop south to the Alaska Range, with that frontal system coming up from the southwest, increasing clouds, and MVFR conditions will develop there, especially as we get past midday into Saturday afternoon at Lake Clark and Merrill. Coming up, Rainy Pass to the central Alaska Range to Windy Pass, generally VFR conditions should hold. And as you fly north of Windy Pass on the other side of the Alaska Range, there's the possibility of a scattered shower or thunderstorm. Same thing, Isabel Pass on over to Mentasta passes. There will be the potential for a thunderstorm, especially on the north side of those passes and perhaps within the vicinity there at Metasta Pass for Saturday, even though conditions will be VFR. Further south, Tanita Pass, generally VFR conditions for Saturday, and Portage Pass, also VFR conditions. And then finally, in the northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White, we'll see VFR conditions and rather warm temperatures as you get down toward Haines. Some areas there will be in the 70s to near 80, and certainly it's possible in other parts of the Panhandle. all in part because we can see a dome of warmer air aloft, this mid-upper level ridge. We have freezing levels aloft above 10,000 feet over the eastern mainland into the Yukon Territory, down through the Panhandle, Haida Gwaii, and out over the Gulf. So definitely the warm air in place here. Meanwhile, further west, we have the low that's sitting here over Friday into Saturday will be located. The surface low will be out over just north of the central Aleutians in the lower Bering, and that feature will begin to open up on Sunday. As it weekends, it'll open up and kind of wash out as another low in front, kick it out and replace it. But otherwise, you can see summertime freezing levels aloft much higher than what they've been. Surface freezing line pushes out the Beaufort, Chukchi Seas off coast there of the Utqiagvik. So, and then looking at where there may be some icing with the remnant moisture around that low pressure and some showers and thicker cloud tops. There is the potential for moderate icing above 10,000 feet there back toward the central Aleutians. And then also extending up along the frontal boundary and the feed of moisture that's coming north along the west coast. With any showers or thicker clouds, there is the potential for some icing above 10,000 feet along areas here of the west coast. And then looking at the jet stream, nothing all that strong, a little bit of ridging at 300 millibars, but not that pronounced. We do have a bit of a southwest flow coming in off the eastern Aleutians, the Alaska Peninsula, curving more southerly flow. And then as we bring it down to mid-levels, 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, you can see that low circulation north of the central Aleutians as it's going to gradually weaken and open up as we get into Sunday night. But it pushes a broad belt of 30 to isolated 40-knot winds up along the western mainland, Alaska Peninsula, southwest coast, and then trailing out along the Aleutians. Some stronger winds out there entering the Alaska Peninsula. But back on the backside, we have northerly flow that's on the order right around 35 knots. And then at 3,000 feet, you see the wind field not quite as pronounced or as strong as it was as the other day. So we're not likely to see gale force winds on Saturday coming up the Alaska Peninsula. Now aloft, the winds will be a bit stronger, but just near gale force. Not quite that strong at the surface, but there's the low circulation there again, just kind of sitting right just north of the central Aleutians. And as we look further eastward, bit of a ridging pattern here out over the central eastern Gulf up into the mainland. So that surface high pressure will be definitely warm there. And for turbulence, because of the broad circulation around this low, down through the lower Bering, north of the central Aleutians, we have a clouded front arcing ahead of it. So there is the potential for some moderate turbulence. Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay, inland, west arm of the Alaska range, including the area around Lake Iliamna, Kamishak Bay, down along the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians. And there could also be some low-level wind shear along that frontal boundary as we go through the day Saturday. But for the southwest, we're generally looking at turbulence surface to 4,000 feet, and then an area back here out toward the western Aleutians. There could also be some moderate turbulence surface to 3,000 feet on Saturday.